Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be creating a photo picker using Jetpack Compose, and we will be adding this to an app and make it really easy to reuse and share. If that sounds really interesting to you, stay tuned. Let's learn together. So here we are in a brand new empty Jetpack Compose project, and as you can see, Gradle's just now wrapping up running. And the first thing we want to do for this project is add a dependency. Now, this dependency is actually not required for the project itself. It is simply required if you want to view the photos in the project that we're working with today. So we'll go ahead and add our dependency, and that dependency is an implementation of io.coil -kt Koil compose, and 2.5 is not the latest. The latest as of right now is 2.7. So let's go ahead and let's sync those changes. All right, and with that added, we are ready to jump right into our project. So let's go back to our main Kotlin file here. There we are. We are in our main activity. And we're not going to use this default greeting here. So let's go ahead and let's get that out of the way. And we will create instead a new composable, and that composable is going to be called photo selector view, and that will take a max selection count, which is a type of integer, and we're going to go ahead and default it to 1 there. There we go. Now this will be our photo selector button, and so we're going to go ahead and give it some properties here first. So the first thing we want is a list of selected images, and that's going to be by remember with a mutable state of, and it's going to be a list of URI, and that URI will be optional. There we go. And then by default, we want to set that to an empty list. Looks like our implementation was just a little bit off there. There we go. And then by default, we want that to be an empty list. There we go. Now we've got to import our remember statements here. So let's option click enter. Or spell it right. That would also help. So we're going to import the remember there. There we go. And then we'll option click to get our set value and our get value here for our remember statement. Now, one quick note before we get too far away. This URI, it's not a name. It's actually an acronym, and it stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. That's why it's pronounced URI, just as a quick side note. All right, now for our button text, we want one of two things. We want to allow this to be either a photo selector for just one photo or multiple photos. We want this to work in any scenario rather than having to create a custom button, a custom photo selector for either one photo or multiple. We want just a generic one that works in either case. So let's go ahead and create that. So our button text for that button, we will say if our max selection count is greater than 1, then we want our button text to say select up to the max count of images. There we go. And if it is less than 1, then we want it to say select an image. There we go. Now there's another piece of mutable state here that we need to keep track of, and that is our photo picker launcher. So we will say that we have a single photo picker launcher, and that is a remember launch activity result that is accurate. And then the contract for that, we want to pick a single visual media, not multiple. So we'll say pick visual media. There we go. And then our onResult function is going to be a single URI, and that single URI will take our selected images and it'll be a list of just our only URI. There we go. And then we're going to create another one for our multiple photo picker launcher. So let's call that out. Let's say this is our photo picker launcher, and it will be the same type up here of remember launcher for activity result. And the contract for this will be conditional. So this is pretty close, but we're going to make it a little bit different. So for our max items, we want to check if the max selection count is greater than 1, and if it is, we want our max selection count. Otherwise, we want 2. Now, the reason we want to do this here is because this multiple visual media picker will throw an error if you try to pass anything less than 2 into it. And so by adding this if check here, we're just making extra sure that no matter what, we don't accidentally launch this multiple photo picker launcher with only a single image or with only a single item. So now that we've got those out of the way, our single and multiple photo picker launchers, we are going to create a function to decide which one we want to use. So we'll say that this is a function called launch photo picker. And if our max selection count is greater than 1, we want to launch our multiple photo picker. And this is correct. We do only want to pick images. So then we will close our bracket here. And then let's close out our if statement here. And then else, if we have less than 1, we want to launch that's exactly right, we want to launch our single photo picker launcher. And we want to only, again, pass images just for this demo. So now that we've got that function figured out and we're deciding which one we want to launch correctly, we're ready to start adding our view. So in our view, we want a column. And in this column, we want, let's add a couple modifiers to our column first. So yes, that's exactly right. We want to go ahead and center this thing vertically and horizontally, and we want this to be filling the max size here. And now inside of our column, we only want a button, and we want to call our launch photo picker whenever we choose that button. And then we want this button to have a text of our button text. And then we don't need this selected images stuff that the AI just threw onto our view for us. Don't need that. So let's go ahead and let's import this material 3 button. There we go. All right. And now there's one other component that we need to add, and that is our image viewer. Now, if you only want this button to just display the photo picker, then you're actually done here. You can stop the tutorial. But if you want to actually see what this looks like on a running device, then we got to keep going, and we've got to give ourselves a way to view what the photos are that we've selected. So let's go ahead and let's create another composable. And this composable we will call a image layout view. And this will take all of the selected images. And this again will be a list of our URI type. And we will make that URI optional. There we are. All right, and now we are ready to create a lazy row. And inside this lazy row, we want to pass our items. And we want the one that takes a generic list type here. And so we'll take our items, which will be a URI. And then we will pass that into pretty close an async image. And our modifier, let's add a modifier here, and we will say not padding, but of fill max width. There we go. And we'll also add a content scale, and our content scale will be content scale dot fit. There we are. And for our items up here, we want to pass in our selected images. There we go. And so now, for every selected image that we pass, we will display the asynchronous image from the Koil library that we imported earlier, and we will display that in our image layout view. So let's add that here. Let's add our image layout view and pass in the selected images, just like that. Now, we've got some errors going on back up top because we forgot to get rid of this greeting here. So let's get rid of this greeting and let's replace it with our photo selector view. Nope, not that one. Our photos selector view. There we go. And let's pass a max selection count of 3, just like that. And now it's saying that we're not using our inner padding, and we actually don't need it just for this demo, so let's go ahead and get rid of it. And then it will be angry at us because we're not using that inner padding, so we'll suppress that linter warning here. And actually, there's one more red warning as we can see here, so let's come back down to the bottom here, and it is complaining because of our preview, which we aren't using right now anyway, so we will just get rid of. There we go. All right, and now we've got all those warnings out of the way. Let's run the app and see what happens. All right, so here we go. We've got our app running, and it says we can select up to 3 images. So let's go ahead and click our button. Very nice, and we are seeing our photo roll without even having to ask for permission, might I add. Very cool feature. Thank you, Google, for doing that. And then we can add, so we've only got 2 photos in our photo roll, so let's add those 2 photos. And there we go. We can see that I've got some screenshots here that I had taken earlier, and we are able to view those without having to ask for permission and with a very small and pretty easy amount of code that's pretty reusable in my opinion. And with that, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you leave a comment, just be nice about it. That's all I ask. Thanks. Have a great day.